She boarded the aircraft without ceremony. No entourage. No priority boarding. No rank displayed anywhere on her clothing. Just a small carry-on, neutral posture. And the kind of stillness most people mistake for exhaustion. The flight was crowded. A mixed group of civilians, contractors, and a handful of uniformed service members rotating back from training zones. Conversations filled the cabin, complaints about delays, jokes about seat assignments, loud speculation about turbulence. She took her seat near the wing, window closed, hands folded, eyes forward. No one noticed her at first, and she clearly preferred it that way. The man across the aisle kept tapping his foot, talking too loudly about his time overseas. The woman behind her sighed dramatically every time someone stood in the aisle. A pair of younger men a few rows up laughed about how quiet people always look suspicious. She didn't react. She had learned long ago that silence was not weakness. It was control. Her posture never slouched. Her breathing never rushed. Even when the cabin crew bumped her shoulder with a cart, she barely shifted to the untrained eye. She looked ordinal to someone who knew what to look for. She was anything but. Her hands bore faint marks, not calluses from labor, but controlled, where from years of friction against equipment. Her neck carried a subtle tension, the kind built from scanning environments without conscious thought. Her eyes moved only when necessary, but when they did, they missed nothing. The plane taxied. Engines roared. The flight lifted cleanly into the sky. Somewhere above the clouds, the cabin lights dimmed. Conversations softened. People settled into the illusion of safety that commercial altitude provides. That was when the first voice came over the intercom. Not the pilot. A different tone. Professional. Controlled. Not meant for passengers. Flight deck to control. Confirm transponder signal is clean. I pause. Then another voice, this one sharper, unmistakably military. Control confirms. Escort package is locked. Iron Fist is aboard. Most passengers didn't register the words. They weren't meant to. But the woman by the window felt the shift instantly. Her jaw tightened. Just slightly. Iron Fist. She hadn't heard that call sign spoken aloud in years. Across the cabin, uniformed airman 2 rows back froze mid-sip. His eyes lifted. His posture changed. He knew that name. So did the contractor near the aisle, who stopped joking and slowly turned his head, scanning the rows like he was suddenly unsure where he was sitting. The intercom crackled. Again. Visual confirmation from escort. Iron Fist confirmed. Holding position. Fighter escort. That wasn't standard. Passengers exchanged confused glances. Someone laughed nervously. Another muttered that it must be a drill. The woman remained still. She didn't look around. She didn't acknowledge the shift, because reacting would invite attention. And attention was the last thing she wanted. A child a few rows up asked his father why the pilot sounded different. The father didn't answer. He was staring forward now, face pale, suddenly aware that something about this flight was not routine. Outside the window, faint shapes appeared against the sky. 2 jets, flying close. Too close for comfort if you didn't understand what it meant. The airman behind her leaned slightly into the aisle, trying to see past heads and seats. His eyes landed on her. Boots, plain, worn civilly. Then he noticed her posture again, still balanced, ready. His throat tightened. The intercom spoke again, quieter this time, as if the cockpit had forgotten civilians. We're listening. Maintain altitude. Iron Fist remains green. The airman swallowed. Green meant operational. Green meant capable. Green meant whoever Iron Fist was. They weren't just a passenger. They were the reason this aircraft mattered. Ripple of unease spread. A loud man across the aisle stopped talking. The laughter died. The cabin didn't fall silent, but it changed. People sensed hierarchy before they understood it. The woman finally turned her head, not to look at the jets, not to look at the passengers. She looked at the window-checking reflection. Angle, spacing. Habit. The kind you don't lose. The contractor caught her movement and frowned. She didn't look afraid. She didn't look curious. She looked aware. Minutes passed. The escorts stayed with them. The intercom went quiet. People whispered. Someone speculated about a high-ranking official on board. Another joked about celebrities. Someone else suggested a prisoner transfer. The woman closed her eyes, not to rest, to wait. Eventually, turbulence hit. Light at first, then stronger. The plane dipped unexpectedly and a few passengers gasped. A drink spilled. A child cried. The woman's hand came up instantly, steadying the armrest, bracing without panic training. The airman saw it clearly now. No flinch, no surprise, just response. The intercom snapped back on. Control to Iron Fist. Shifting. Escort adjusting. This time, several heads turned. Iron Fist, whoever that was. The pilots were speaking directly to them. The woman opened her eyes. Slowly, she pressed the call button above her seat. A flight attendant approached, nervous but professional. Yes, ma'am. The woman leaned in just enough that only the attendant could hear. Tell the cockpit they can drop 500 feet and hold. The turbulence will clear. The attendant blinked. Ma'am, trust me. There was no arrogance in her voice. No command. Just certainty. The attendant hesitated, then nodded and moved forward. A minute later, the intercom came alive again. Copy that. Iron fist. Adjusting altitude. The aircraft descended slightly. The turbulence eased almost immediately. The cabin exhaled. People looked around, confused but relieved. The airman sat back, heart pounding. There was no doubt now he knew that call sign. Only one person had ever carried it in his training briefings. A woman, Navy SEAL, attached to joint operations most people weren't clear to read about. Someone who didn't need introductions. The contractor's eyes drifted back to her this time. He didn't look amused. He looked careful, Dad, as the flight stabilized. The jet slowly peeled away. Escort complete. The intercom spoke one last time. Safe skies, Iron Fist. She nodded once, barely noticeable. The plane continued on its route, just another aircraft in the sky. But nothing inside it was the same. People didn't talk as loudly anymore, no. One stared, but many glanced. Respect arrived quietly. The airman never approached her. He didn't need to. He simply sat straighter. When the plane finally landed, there was no announcement, no ceremony. Passengers stood, gathered bags, filed out. She waited, last to rise as she stepped into the aisle. The airman met her eyes for half a second. He didn't salute, he didn't speak, he simply nodded. She returned a dot equaled, and then she disappeared into the terminal. Another traveler among thousands. No one clapped, no one followed. But everyone who heard that call sign carried it with them long after the flight ended. Because power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just sits quietly by the window until the sky speaks its name.